Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. Welcome to the Healthcare Heroes Force, another informational interview session. And tonight we are going to have Hamori on the hot seat. And as you know, I've been pairing the more seasoned Salesforce professionals with our newer Salesforce professionals. And tonight I actually paired Ariel Ferrero to interview Dee, and I will let Ariel ask Dee questions, like asking her to tell about herself. So, Ariel, you can have the floor now. Oh, by the way, before you start, I would like to remind everyone that we have a giveaway. This is a webcam, brand new. If you want to join, I know some people here already have great webcams. If you want to join the raffle, put your name in the chat box and I will put it in a spin the wheel app on a browser. Okay, so I will show that later when I'm ready to spin the wheel. You have to be here at the end of the session to actually be eligible to win. If your name is there but you're not here anymore, you won't win. All right. Okay, Ariel, the floor is yours.
All right, everyone, thank you so much for coming tonight. So first we're going to get started. Dee, can you give us a little bit about yourself and introduce yourself to us and what your role is right now in your current position?
Yeah, sure. My name is Dee Hamori. I transitioned into the Salesforce ecosystem a little bit more than 2 years ago, and now I'm a senior Salesforce admin at Carville.
Nice. Okay, so how did you land that position?
I did a year of Salesforce consulting and learned a lot during my time there. And I was looking for something with a little bit more work-life balance. I applied on LinkedIn and hit it off with my manager when I interviewed, so I got the position.
Awesome. That's fantastic. So what was your healthcare position before transitioning into Salesforce?
I was a pharmacist at Walgreens. Do not recommend.
Understand that one. Oh, and you already answered this one. So the transition into Salesforce. Let's see. All right. What were your fears before finally deciding you were going to take that leap?
I think I have three main fears. The first one is fear of the unknown. When I was a pharmacist, I earned a six-figure salary, right? So leaving that behind was really hard. And especially since when I hand in my letter, I didn't know what I'm going to do if I can find another career. So that was definitely hard. And then the second one is like fear of falling behind my peers. My classmates were getting promoted to manager, graduating from residency, landing hospital positions, getting a house, having a life. And I'm like just here. You're like, I don't even know what I'm going to do. So that was a little bit scary. The third one is kind of related to what the second one is, fear of being a failure. Like, what would people think of me? I went through 6-year pharmacy school and now like less than a year of graduation, I'm already leaving the field. In some sense, I did fail as a pharmacist, but I remember my husband kept telling me, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb the tree, it will think it's stupid. So that really helped me out during my career transition and just like keep moving and keep learning.
Yes, I think grit is a very great word to describe that, Dee, because without it, it's very hard to keep going.
Yeah.
All right. So the next question is, what were the challenges you faced before landing your first Salesforce position?
Salesforce was completely new to me at the time. Like I have zero background, so getting to know where landing my first position. Yeah, so at that time, Salesforce was completely new to me. I didn't have any prior experience. I didn't know anybody in the ecosystem. So convincing people that I can do what they need me to do and getting them to take a chance on me is really hard, as I'm sure a lot of you know that. And I didn't know what to expect in terms of like compensation. That is something that I still struggle with now sometimes. Back in 2020, I was new to the ecosystem, but I already knew how to build flow pretty well, and I already knew how to write a test before I get my first job. So it's a little bit hard to kind of negotiate on the salary because on one hand, I'm new. On the other hand, I already know a lot of things. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, let's see. The next question is, how was your job application process? And was it tech assessment versus soft skills or both?
It depends on the company. So if you're applying for a consulting job, it's usually both. Usually the first round is like the general question, get to know you, kind of like see where you are in terms of your like soft skills. And the second round will typically be like a tech assessment. And then the third round will be meet the team. For internal companies, like internal admins, it's a little bit different depending on the company, but in general, those positions lean toward like evaluating a soft skill versus your technical skill.
How did you manage to be visible to recruiters and hiring managers when the competition is worldwide?
I think my PharmD actually helped a lot because not a lot of us transition into Salesforce ecosystem. So I think a lot of time a recruiter was like, oh, she's a doctor of pharmacy. That piqued their interest. And I even have recruiter reach out to me just to ask me why I transitioned into Salesforce. On top of that, I am very invested in continue to grow and learning new skills. And I think that reflects on the amount of certification I have. So the certification usually get me the first interview.
Awesome.
Yeah.
How did you translate your healthcare skills into Salesforce lingo?
I actually have been in Salesforce ecosystem a lot longer than I have been a pharmacist. So definitely take my answer with a grain of salt. One of the things that really helped me is actually time management skills. I was like, as if you're in healthcare, whether you're a nurse, whether you're a technician or you're a pharmacist or a doctor, chances are you're really busy. You have a lot of things to do, and you're probably doing a lot of things in the same time too. That definitely is still applied to my job as a Salesforce admin right now. I usually reserve a big chunk of blocks when I'm like trying to code or trying to build flows. And then I will do smaller piece of work like creating a field, creating a page layout, creating validation rule. That doesn't really take a lot of my mental energy. I will usually do them between meetings or even in meetings. I think majority of us in healthcare are also great at finding answers. Because, you know, like when you're in school, you're taught all the time, if you didn't document it, it didn't happen. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. So a lot like when, for example, if you're in a meeting with a client, usually, and they say something, whether they're giving you a business requirement, whether they are disagreeing with your suggestion and trying to go against your suggestion, I have been actually really good in documenting them. So I don't see that as much as like internal admin, but see that a lot when in consulting, when the client come back and be like, oh, why is this breaking? I thought we fixed it. And like we can pull back my documentation and say, on this day, I talked to this person and this is my recommended step, but you guys want a quick fix. So as I warn you guys, quick fix is not going to be a permanent, fix. So eventually this will break, and maybe it's due to it's not scalable. You didn't consider API errors. You didn't consider how many field your object can actually have, stuff like that.
And that's really good to point out too, like the documentation purposes and someone coming back and like,
Yeah.
What healthcare skill you transferred to Salesforce do you think is most valuable?
It's more like a mindset than a skill. I really enjoy learning, and as a healthcare professional, I don't know about other healthcare professional, but for pharmacists, in order to keep up with your license, you have to do continuing education, and it's considered as it's just part of your job, and that's how I see it. See like doing trailheads, and I've talked to somebody I mentored, and they're like, I am already 30 something. I already have a career. Why do I have to go and still spend my time to learn on trailhead? And I was like, you are in tech and it changes a lot. If you don't spend that time, you're going to fall behind. Even if you have a job now, in 5 years, you're going to fall behind. For example, 5 years ago, who knows how to use Flow? Not a lot of people know how to use Flow now, but if you want to stay relevant in this ecosystem, you have to learn that, because Salesforce is deprecating workflow and process, right? Having that mindset really puts you ahead of your peers, in my opinion, because your skill will always be sharp and it will always be up to date.
Absolutely. And I think it's even just from the little touch I've had so far, I think it's really similar to healthcare, where it's the ever evolving field.
It can be a struggle sometimes because there's so much to learn, right? And especially if you have a lot of certification, you work on a lot of product, then how do you find the time to keep up with all of them?
Absolutely. How did you adapt to your Salesforce or your tech job?
Since I work remotely at home, I try to make sure I have enough physical separation between my work and my life. So right now you're seeing me here. This is like kind of my working area. I try to only do work at my work desk, and after work hour, I physically remove myself from here to either my room or the couch. That way it feels a little bit like, oh, I'm off work now. Versus I used to just relax on my desk as well. And I find that even I'm relaxing, even I'm not working, that still makes me very anxious because I'm thinking about work and I'm still in the work mode.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So and you just mentioned this, you are working remotely. Do you have any in-office or hybrid flexibility, part-time, full-time?
I'm sure my company would love to have me back in office, but that's my choice to work remotely. I do have the option to go hybrid if I ever want to move to Atlanta. I don't believe I can become a part-time employee at my current job, but there are some part-time options out there. And in my last company, one of the things that me and my manager talked about is for potentially for me to go from working 5 days to working 3 days. So
yeah. Awesome. So how is your office culture compared to healthcare culture?
In my experience, Salesforce ecosystem in general is extremely open and really helpful, really collaborative compared to healthcare. My team in particular is very strong in advocacy, and also we have laser focus on our career growth. That has been really helpful when, like, it's a welcome environment when I transition into my current company, and I feel very comfortable asking any of my coworker basically any questions, even if it's not work related. And I feel like I really get to know them as person instead of just as coworker.
What is your personal career growth trajectory, and what are the possibilities from here?
I'm going to become a Salesforce solution architect. That's like kind of my goal for next year. Some other option could be I could become a product specialist. So for example, CPQ and Marketing Cloud are really, really hot right now, and they're in demand. So I could pivot into one of those and just know one single product really, really well and ditch all the other products. Or I can become a people manager and manage a team. Or there's another one that I could do is to become a developer, since I do know how to code.
What's a typical day in your life? Like life as a consultant in your Salesforce role?
Yeah, as a consultant, typically I will have stand up around probably 9 or 10 o'clock. And then we will talk about what needs to be done, what needs to be pulled over for that day, if there's any emergency stuff come up, and we'll in the meeting we'll usually prep for a client meeting as well, like what are we talking about, what is, if we have a demo, then we get those out of the way in the meeting. And then we also do like solution designs a little bit, because my consulting company is a really small like company. We have less than 10 employees, so it's easy for everybody to just like be open and talk about their projects. And after that is basically individual work. You will just finish whatever you have on your plate and update your team member, collaborate with them if you need. As an internal admin, my day to day has stayed pretty similar. I still have to stand up with my team, and in that meeting, we'll usually just update everybody on the status of our work, and then we'll identify any blockers. Then we'll usually chat a little bit about non-work stuff. Then we'll go on to our day, and this individual work. There's collaboration, there's meeting with stakeholders, but the majority of my time is focused on individual work.
Awesome. What do you like most about your job?
I like how it's a rewarding career, but it also give me a lot of flexibility to do the stuff that I want to do. So for example, my company has the unlimited PTO policy, and it is something that when I was interviewing was like, yeah, sure, unlimited. But they actually do want you to take the PTO, and I haven't had any problem taking it, and I've taken quite a bit of it this year to go hiking to see the fall colors. But when I'm working, I am very focused, and I was able to get my work done, and my company didn't have any problem with me being out so much, as long as I get my work done. So I really like that versus some other career. I feel like even though you're not super productive, you are basically trapped there until you clock off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What do you like the least about your position?
Ooh.
Or is there?
There's definitely not a thing that I don't like about my current company. No, I'm just kidding. It can be very frustrating when people outside of like the technical team that they just don't see your value, and I don't get what your contribution is. That's something that my company is really struggling with. Like, well, like I will give you an example. Like, for example, because Salesforce decided to kill workflow and also process. I'm currently in a project that's moving all the workflow and process over to Flow. And you probably know one-to-one conversion is definitely not a great idea when it comes to Flow. So there's a lot of time spent to basically design a scalable solution. And I often, my stakeholder will be like, oh, why does it take such a long time to do it? Like, why can't we just do it and it works? So why do we have to consolidate 10 flow into one flow, right? It's really hard to get your point across when they don't have the technical knowledge, and that could be frustrating.
Oh yeah. What advice would you give us to newly transitioning into Salesforce?
Don't give up. That's the only advice.
Only advice, don't give up. Okay. All right. So it looks like we have some additional questions in the chat for you. Sorry, I'm just kind of like moving screens for a second. All right. So it looks like, so the first question in the chat, if you have any, oh, that's not a question.
Well,
Sorry.
the ones who typed their question can unmute themselves and ask the question yourself.
I can.
How about that?
Ooh, we can do that.
Let's make it more,
Engaging and
participatory.
collaborative.
Yes. Alfred, was that already answered? Alfred, would you like to speak? I think Alfred is shy. So what? So he asked.
Sorry,
What?
I'm trying to work at the same time and listen.
Okay, I'll
As a
let you
pharmacist,
ask your question.
Well, what kind of certifications do you start with? Is it the admin certification, or is there something else you need to do to get started with this? I'm a pharmacist also, so I'm just trying to figure it out.
Yeah, so the first one I recommend everybody to take is the basic Salesforce admin certification. And then I will recommend you to take App Builder. And after you finish App Builder, you can take the senior admin one. I think that one is pretty similar to the App Builder. And I see a lot of people passing them like in very short amount of time. So
Okay, sounds good.
So I followed that up with a question. Did you take a pay cut when you started from being a pharmacist to your first role as a Salesforce?
yeah, I definitely take a huge pay cut. It's around 50%. So
that's painful.
It was bad. Yeah. But now my salary is back up. Like I make more now than compared to when I was a pharmacist.
So how quickly did that take to get back to where you were?
That took me 1.5 years, but I don't think I am the average case. So I will caution you by using my number to,
You're probably a high achiever anyway.
No, I think I just have a lot of cert and I switch job. I have been switching job every year, so I think that's why I was able to get back to my old salary pretty quickly.
So how often or what's the shortest gap between two jobs when you were job hopping to faster go to that level faster?
What is I think I stayed, the shortest job is probably when I was pharmacist. I stayed for 5 months.
I mean,
Salesforce.
When you were in Salesforce, so you had that drop in your pay initially, and now you've reached where you were at when you were still a pharmacist. But you said that because you were applying to other jobs, so kind of accelerated the way you reached that point. So what was the shortest gap between those jobs that you applied for, so that you get that increase in pay faster?
I think it was the shortest job I stayed at. I think it was my first job, which I stayed at the Sisley for 8 or 9 months. Yeah, and I left that company exactly because they are underpaying me. Like, I got my title change when I became an employee from contractor position, but my salary was not adjusted at all. So at that point, I was like, I'm doing coding and API call out stuff for you guys, and it doesn't really make sense for my salary to be that low.
And you mentioned something about documenting, so that when they ask, why did you do this, whatever, what are you using for documentation?
That depends on your company. In consulting, my company use Salesforce to run the business as well. So every single documentation I have is usually in Salesforce related to the task. I have some in the Google Doc that share with client as well, because that's what they see and that's what they use. So is in the Google Doc for the client, and then if I have any internal comments, I will add it in Salesforce.
Polomi, did I say that right? Go ahead, unmute yourself. You can ask your question.
You did say that right. Thank you. Dee, I think I know you through the LinkedIn. We have chat a couple of times, but it really glad to see you here again. My question is, I'm also a pharmacist, studied pharmacy from 12 years, coming from a different country, versus work here from 6-7 years as a pharmacist. But still, I'm not, working pharmacist is not that easy. I'm also from the Walgreens pharmacy. So my question is that I've been
condolence.
Okay. So my question is that when you said you started doing the certification, I've been studying for the Salesforce admin certification. But my question is that is it something that I get a certification and I should be looking for the opportunity, or I should be looking for some kind of the volunteer work to get more hands-on? Because having the certification is it is a credential, but it doesn't give much of the hands-on experience type of thing. So how would you suggest going from there?
Yeah, so I think certification is the first step, and the next step you can consider doing something like, there's a website called Clicked. It's basically experienced Salesforce professional walking you through like a business case, and it's usually very guided, and you can ask them questions, and it's free of charge. So that's one way to get experience, and the other way is like volunteering. There are programs out there like Talent Stacker. I didn't use it, so I'm not like familiar with them, but I've seen people have success graduating from that program. Other than that, if you're on Trailhead, if you go and locate all the super batch, those are usually real business scenario that just written in a fictitious company, but they're applicable in your day-to-day life. So I will go look at that and study the business case and make sure you're able to present that business case and present your solution well, if you absolutely just can't find any volunteering job. Because I view that when I interview, I view that as an experience as well, because you're just not talking to a human that gives you a case, but you're looking at the case and you are thinking of way to solve it. It's a little bit guided, but I will understand that as a beginner.
Okay, thank you.
Now, Alfred had another question here. Go ahead, Alfred. I don't know what Alfred's doing. I'll ask the
Oh,
question.
he was working.
I'm working too at the same time. I'm working and
It's
trying to
probably
listen at the
like
same time.
verifying script.
Exactly. Also, a Walgreens pharmacist too. Um,
Oh.
I do have a question. I know you're administrator, but what is the account executive of healthcare and life science? I see those kind of jobs posted up, and I'm not sure if that relates to anything in healthcare that a pharmacist can do. You know anything about that?
Is usually a selling position if you see something like that, especially if it's like related to Salesforce. If it doesn't say like implementation or like even customer support, if it's like account executive, it's usually the goal for that person is to sell.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
He actually also had a question here if you had a health cloud certification.
I am not. I actually have not learned Health Cloud yet. I don't see that many clients with a need for Health Cloud. So that's why I opt to not study for it. But if you guys have a chance to work with a consultancy that has Health Cloud clients, then definitely take the chance to study it, because I think with your background, you definitely have a leg up in those type of clients because you already speak their language, right? So why not?
Okay, sounds good.
So I did have a question here in the chat. How long do you think it will take you to become a solution architect if you're working full time?
From now or
Yeah.
as a new person?
From now.
From now, I think probably my goal is to become a solution architect next year. But
Oh, wow.
I think it might not happen, but definitely within, I would say definitely within 3 years. It's like a reasonable time frame.
So does that include like studying on your own personal time? Like,
Yes.
and over the weekends?
Yes, I have no life, so
I was gonna ask, how is your work-life balance?
it's not very good. I mean, I do. It's not my workplace fault because I do sign off at 5 p.m. But after I sign off, I kind of have like studying and stuff to do. So
And also, so you mentioned unlimited PTO. In my current job, I have up to 15 days PTO. So I really cannot wrap my head around the concept of unlimited PTO. What does that mean? How does that work?
it depends on the company. This is a question you really need to ask and make sure their unlimited PTO policy is actually real. But fortunately for me, my unlimited PTO policy is actually real. My entire company is having an entire week off the last week of December because Christmas and New Year. On
Nice.
top of our Christmas and New Year vacation. For my team, my manager is a person who decide whether or not I get my PTO. And I asked that question during interview. So when I talk to my manager, when I interview with her, I'll say, hey, the reason that I switch out of consultancy is because of work-life balance, right? So I'm not going to join your company if I have the same work-life balance and like less opportunity to learn and to grow. And she assured me that there's no problem, and as long as I get my work done, I'm pretty much free to go wherever I want. So I usually give her roughly a month of notice of when I want to take a trip, to go hike or something. And the funny thing is, she doesn't really need to approve it. It's kind of auto approved. but the company can put you on a probation if your performance drops. But I don't think that has happened to anybody in my department. So
Alfred J. again has a question. I don't know if he's available. Or he's still working. Maybe I should ask it for him. What is the starting salary range for a consultant?
and when I interview junior consultants, I've seen their salary usually start at 60K a year. But if you get the job in consulting, it usually can climb up pretty quickly.
How do you say this? Hugh?
Mhm.
When? Did I say that right?
Oh yeah.
Go ahead, ask your question.
Don't grill me.
Why would I grill you? We're friends.
I think
When
he's
will you
teasing you with that
retire?
question.
When will you retire from getting certifications?
Never.
Just checking. Just checking. But
And
my
you were
friend was
right, right?
You
asking-
will never be able to catch up to me. Don't worry.
Okay, I wasn't asking for myself. It was for my friend.
Yeah, asking for a friend.
FYI, he's also a consultant, and he worked for Walgreens as well, and also have a bunch of certifications. So we have a friendly competition going on here. So
But I have a real question that would help everybody else. I've seen a lot of job postings that require agile experience. How would you recommend getting experience specifically with that? Because even with like volunteer work or experience solving super badges, you don't necessarily have that experience and be able to speak the language.
that's a good question. I don't know if I have a specific recommendation for that. The way I go about interview is I did a lot of them initially, because I probably interview for somewhere around 100. I applied for definitely more than 300 jobs before I got my first job, and I probably interviewed like 50 times or so before I land my first position. So at that point, I'm like, I already know what you're gonna ask me because other people asked me before, and I kind of like just going through the process and refine my answer. And sometimes if I really like the manager or I feel like they won't judge me, then I will actually ask for feedback. I will say, hey, I know, we are not aligned at this point. Can you help me understand why? And is there any advice you can get me?
That's a great
Another
advice.
thing I want to point out is if you're interviewing for as an internal admin in a small company or even medium-sized company, your manager, they likely don't know Salesforce. My manager does know Salesforce because she was a solution architect before, but for the most part, your manager is not going to know Salesforce. So don't get too technical. Understand the business case and understand how your solution helped that business case. In terms of, like, for example, you can say something like, oh, I consolidated this process instead of the sales rep having to find the fields in like 10 different places. Now it's in a screen flow. So I build a screen flow, and it save you 5 minutes or even 3 minutes per case or per account and per interaction. And by the end of the day, this is how many minutes that I save the sales rep for them to sell. Or for example, if you're in Marketing Cloud or you're in like analytic, then you can say, oh, I identified a area of improvement that you need. Like nobody was looking at how our campaign is performing, and I identify that, and I like have metrics to track engage rate, open rate, click-through rate, stuff like that. And after I see it's not performing well, then I use Einstein Analytics to make sure the content is more personalized, things like that. Then that's like a language that they understand. Even don't say Einstein Analytics, just say dynamic email, something like that.
You have
have
another
another
question
question.
here. Yeah.
Yeah. Another question would be, what are some of your biggest lessons
Biggest
as
what?
you were, your biggest lessons that you've learned as you were starting your career?
Always negotiate. Always negotiate. Even if you think your company, your employer is offering you a fair salary, always negotiate. I don't care whether it's maybe you want more money, or maybe you want more vacation, maybe you want them to pay for your certification or conferences. Always negotiate. If they say no, we can't give you more money, then you can step back and be like, oh, how about you pay for my certification? That's a benefit to me as a professional, and it's benefit to you because I'm working for you, so I need to know stuff, right? Always negotiate. I feel like I didn't negotiate my first job, and I didn't negotiate my second job. And when I went into my second job and I start working, and I start seeing, at the time, my title is actually junior consultant, and everybody else is like typical Salesforce consultant, and I was the only junior person on the team, but I did the exact same work that my peer does. So that prompted me to have a conversation with the CEO and be like, hey, what exactly is the difference between my work and their work? And my boss at the time was like, oh, actually, there's no difference. So let me get you a title adjustment and a raise. Had I not be the person who advocated for myself, I don't know if they will be like, oh, actually, this title is really incorrect. So let me adjust that, right? And even for my job now, the offer they gave me was a very fair offer. And I fell into the trap of like not negotiating enough. I did negotiate, but not to the amount that I want, and just a little bit. And later on, my manager told me that I actually should have negotiated more, because if I don't negotiate, even if my manager think I'm worth more, she's not in the position to advocate that for me. So you will always have to be the person who advocate for yourself.
Follow-up question. Sorry, I feel like I'm taking over now. So you made two really good points to negotiate. Maybe it's not monetary, but for other things. The first question is, I think sometimes people approach negotiating incorrectly, or they could probably have a better approach towards negotiating. With as many interviews as you had, and as many job changes as you've made, what's your best advice for approaching a negotiation conversation? The second thing that you made a really good point about was, well, go ahead and answer that now. I'll ask my second question.
So for negotiation, I will say, first of all, know how much you're worth. I struggle with that. I still struggle with that. One way that I go around it is I just go out and have a bunch of interviews and see what offer I get. And my negotiation is usually based on those offers. Like, for example, if I have an offer that give me 130K, but I don't like the company, I will still keep that offer in mind. And when I interview for my next company, I will say, here, I am actually expecting 130K, even though my salary right now is not 130K, but there are other company that offer me this amount of money. And usually I will tag a little bit on top of that, that give room for that company to negotiate the salary and meet me in the middle, which is 130K.
So my second thought wasn't really a question, it was more of something I wanted to share, was that sometimes people have the wrong mentality towards negotiation, and that it's like people approach it more as, guess the number that they'll accept, as opposed to working towards a number in the middle like you had just ended with. So to not sell yourself short, don't undersell yourself. But yeah, that's it.
Definitely agree on that.
Thank you for that. I have a question in relation to negotiating. Have you ever asked if they allow for time to study? Like if you're not satisfied with the offer, at least to kind of be able to use some of the time, work hours for studying instead of using up your weekends.
I have not in interview, but I have after I accepted the job. Like, for example, at Candy Box, my last company, they really needed a CPQ person. So I volunteered to be their CPQ person, but in the same time, I was like, it's a lot of material to go through. It's a very difficult product to learn. I can't really keep up with my Beautiful on top of my studying if you want me to get the cert in a short amount of time. So we did come to like 2 hours per week, which is not nearly enough, FYI. 2 hours per week set aside for me just to study, and me not having to hit that 2 hour of billable hours. At my current company, when I interview, I knew my manager is the kind of person that would not really push you to complete all the work on top of the studying. So that was not a concern. I didn't have that concern at the time, so I just didn't ask. And right now, she actually, when she assigned out all the work during the sprint, she actually look at your capacities and look at how many material that you're going through in terms of like studying and skilling up, things like that. One thing that she did for not just for me, for the entire team, is all of us are going through the marketing cloud certification right now. So when she communicate out to the stakeholder, she said something along the line that because you guys want my team to upskill and that needs time, so your work is not going to be done in time, or it might take a little bit longer for my team to do that because they also have to study. Yeah. But if you don't get that vibe in your interview, then definitely clarify and ask.
Thank you. Palomi has another question here. Go ahead, Palomi, and ask your question. Go unmute yourself.
Sure. So just one more question on following up on the previous further conversation. So when you get your first certification, how did you prepare going for the Salesforce, like Salesforce jobs when you were coming from the pharmacist background? The language and the way how we talk is different in the tech industry versus the healthcare industry. So how did you adapt that as well?
I volunteered for a Service Cloud implementation project that took roughly 1.5 months. And after that, I was able to use that experience in my following interview and be like, oh, I implemented this. This is the business case. This is a challenge. This is my solution, and this is the result.
Thank you.
Can I ask how you found that Service Cloud implementation that you volunteered at?
I think I might found it on Volunteer Match.
Yeah, right.
And a lot of people will tell you they don't recommend going in blind and volunteering because a lot of nonprofits don't have the resource to, if you're not familiar with Sales Cloud or Service Cloud or whatever product you're implementing, and your intention might be good to help out you gain experience and you help out the nonprofit, right? But if your knowledge is not there, then you can actually do more damage than good. So a lot of time, my mentors have always said they don't recommend people going in and doing volunteer work for nonprofits because they don't have the resource to clean up whatever mess that you made in there. And you might be really good, who knows, but you also might be really bad at the time. So that's just a caution.
Can
Yeah,
you
I've heard that a
clarify
lot.
What do you mean? Can you clarify what you mean by not going in blind? How would you get clarity around what you're getting yourself into?
Sorry, what?
Can you clarify what you mean by not going in blind? How would you get clarity on what you're getting yourself into?
Definitely ask what they need to do. And they will say, because nonprofits usually don't know technical stuff, so they will likely give you a business case or be like, okay, this is the data we are trying to capture and this is the challenge I need to solve. Then before you say yes to volunteer, think about how you will solve it, think about the solution and build it out in your own sandbox before you say yes to a opportunity. Same goes for, like, for example, if now I'm doing a side consulting with someone, if a project was like, okay, code this fancy Lightning Web component, then when I look at the requirement, if I'm like, I might be able to figure it out, but I might not, then I usually just go with, sorry, I'm not the right person for you because I don't want to mess up their org. It's very similar to the do no harm principle in healthcare, right? If you're not
Right.
sure if your work is correct, if you're gonna help those people, help the nonprofits, just don't do it. Another way to get experience is not as popular, but you might be able to find someone who is an admin at their company, but they might also be starting and they might need someone to brainstorm with. You might not even get access to their org, but they would ask you a question and see how you will be able to solve it. Then you just build it in a playground and you present a solution. I did that when I was starting too. And I was desperate. So I went around Reddit asking people if I can help them on any project. And some people took the bet. So
When I was looking at before I applied for a job, when I was looking at some of the volunteer opportunities, one thing that I saw that had some sort of like support was the Catch a Fire. I believe it was like they would have a plan, and then there would be like a more senior volunteer who will be able to help the newbie, so that you won't totally ruin it. You won't ruin it, hopefully. So if this is the site, I'm putting it in the chat if you want to check it out. That's already filtered to like Salesforce. Okay.
I heard there are programs out there do like internship placement. I'm not sure if those are paid internship, but I think, again, I didn't have any experience with them. Double check what I said. I think Talent Stacker has some sort of internship program where they will place you in a company and you intern with them. And my guess is if you perform well, they will either refer you to another friend or sign you on as a junior person.
So I actually was a talent stacker. So what they do there, they have sort of like a project that you can work on, and it's really for talent stacker. Like they give you their requirement as to what they want to track with the members and whatnot. So you get the chance to build that solution out. But they have from within the administrators of talent stackers, they have the ones who are role playing as the client slash project manager. So you have that guidance, and you get to experience how to work with teammates. You get to experience how real it is that it's so hard to find a common time. But it's probably different when you're actually working and you're expected to be like there during office hours, but yeah, you get that experience to try to solution the requirements. They're not as formal as what we do in our Booz Allen consulting. It's an enterprise level, so like the whole the projects are big, and we really break it up to smaller chunks. So it's a very highly organized way of solutioning. The experience you will get from Talent Stacker it's like a boot camp of some sort. So these are the requirements. You build it out in 4 weeks. By the end of the 4 weeks, you should be able to demonstrate as like a proof of concept what you built out, and then be able to train the user how to use what you built. So that's the kind of experience that Talent Stacker will be able to provide you with if you join that. As far as the other training programs that are paid, I actually have a post. Sometimes I wonder why we don't have like a featured post in groups, because I wanted to feature that, but I can only pin one post at a time. But I did post about those paid training opportunities. Some of them might require that you have at least the admin cert. Some of them don't even require that. And the last one, the one that I just posted recently, which is like the Salesforce supported type of boot camp. What they do there is so they have, in addition to like the mentoring about LinkedIn branding and whatnot, they have the Clicked, because Clicked really is also part of the Salesforce program. There was a partnership then, but now Clicked is under Talent Alliance, and Talent Alliance is partnered with Salesforce really to seek the talents, right? And so now I had been talking with a Salesforce person who is job seeker fronting. There is another person who initially reached out to me. She was facing the companies. So now with this job seeker facing person, she presented to me that kind of journey, job seeker journey, so that at the end, after the click, you will be faced with the potential employers. And I'm not sure if this is the same as the K2 Talent Alliance, because I know of several people who went through that. If it is the same, they have mentors from those companies who will be your mentor in that K2 Talent Alliance. And you will have some pay. Of course, it's not that big, but there's pay, and apparently there's benefits too. I thought initially that it was like an hourly rate of, I believe it was 25 per hour. And I was corrected by someone who went through that. She said there was benefits. So aside from that hourly rate, there were other training programs like Gerent would start you with the 3K a month with benefits. After 6 months, if you reach a certain requirement, which is 6 certs in 6 months, then you can double
You
your
can do
pay. Yeah, some people actually they went for that, and they're loving it. There are others. So once you get through with this recording, this session, I will go back to pinning that thread so that you will see that, and then I will switch it back to our bootcamp / Salesforce / Talent Alliance. I'll just keep changing the pins, okay? So yeah. All right. We are a little bit above 1 hour mark. We are ready to do the raffle. So I don't know if there are others here who kind of logged in late. If you want to join in the raffle for our webcam, which is C920, brand new, please put your name in the chat box so I can add it. And I'm going to share my screen. Oops, did I share the right screen? Just the small window? Or am I sharing the whole screen?
No, just your window. I think it's actually the screen, the whole screen. Because I can see your other tabs at the top, like of your web browser tabs.
But you're not seeing the manga. Okay. All right.
What are we not supposed to see?
No, there's like a katana. Because I bought this was supposed to be for a game. The laptop was supposed to be a gaming laptop. So there's like samurai and whatnot on the desktop. Anyway, so can you see the list of the names here? If you want to be, okay, I see Elsa. I will add your name here. All right. Anyone else? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, we will go ahead. Dee, do you want to do you want to join? All right, we're all set. 1, 2, 3. Let's see who wins. Kim! Congratulations! I want to save that. I want to save that picture. And then let me just save that, okay? Somebody, would you like to take a screenshot of everyone, if everyone can get their faces on the camera?
Yes.
I'll stop sharing. Okay, who wants to volunteer to take the shot? Anyone? Come on. Okay, I'll take it. Oh wait, someone had their eyes closed. Let's try it again, okay? Oh my God, I can't get it right. Myself is
I
like
feel
blurred.
like my face is like freezing and it's kind of hurting now.
I will just go with that one. It was just me. Oh yeah. He was like facing the sky, like. Anyway, no, I'm not really satisfied. One last. Bear with me. Okay, keep your eyes on the camera. Come on. All right. Okay, it's just me now that's not good, but I'll take that. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for giving us your time, Dee. And thank you, Ariel, for hosting. Thank you for your participation. You people
Yes.
have been so great.
Yes.
And
Thank
hope you have a
everybody.
great weekend.
Yes. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
I will save the chat. Okay.